morning. Called Reginald Nalugala. By profession, I'm a professor. That's a profession. I teach at the university, and my area of specialization is social transformation. So one of the things I really value is this kind of forums. And like even this evening, I'll be speaking at the UN on how young people can be engaged in projects that promote social transformation. That means uplifting life, livelihoods, fighting extremism, making sure there's a good balance in society between men and women. Sometimes we talk of gender, we are only talking of women, but certainly that balance. So that's what I do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. So basically today, in the discussion, we looked at 5 institutions which we felt they are really important in the discussion. The first one is we looked at the political party, which we felt Evans being the chair of the political party national committee will be able to really bring or shape the discussion in terms of the political party and how the political party will be able to promote the discussion of today, which is the role of youth in peace and security. Then the second entity that we really looked at is the National Youth Council. The National Youth Council basically is the voice of the youth in the country as per the Act of Parliament, which also are here. Maybe there's a colleague who has entered in to introduce herself. So,
thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, my name is Faith Mukosi. I'm a member of National Youth Council and representing the CEO. He was supposed to be here, but he had some other engagements, so he requested me to join and represent.
Welcome.
Then there is also, yes, Achila. Yes, yeah, Achila Lima. She came here. She's also from NYC.
Okay, we really appreciate NYC.
Thank you
for that. So we have NYC, and then apart from that, we also have the legislatures. This one we were looking at the legislatures, the Kenya Young Member of County Assembly, which Mheshimiwa is representing, the voice of the youth from the legislative body. So we know that there we will be able to shape it. And the reason why we settle with the Kenya Young MCAs or Member of County Assembly is because majority of the MCAs in this country are MCAs, and actually I was privileged to sit in one of the steering committee in Libya, and also with my friend there, Mheshimiwa. One of the recommendations that came was youth are feeling like the MCAs should be left for the young people. So we feel like this is a very good discussion. So apart from that, we will also be having the Chairman Commission for University Education is on this way. We actually traveled from the back in the day. He's traveling on the way and coming because he felt like this is a discussion that I cannot be able to miss. The Chairman Commission for University Education, Professor Chacha, is also the chair, Board of Trustees of UCSPAK. So he will also be part of this discussion so that we can be able to see how institutions of higher learning can be able to shape the discussion to promote peace in this country. I think I have not forgotten any other entity. So today, those are the discussions. Oh, sorry. You know, Lydia, I've known her when she was working for the State Department of Youth up there, being a youth advisor to the CS. So it's very easy to confuse that she's still in that department. And I'm sure she has more knowledge on youth issues than maybe even the current places that she is. So Lydia, she's the youth advisor from the Office of the Cabinet Secretary, the State Department of Gender. Why we settled also with, or why we felt like Lydia is very key in this discussion, number one, from the fact that she has been able to interact or hold different youth positions in different even the advisor to the CS dealing with issues of youth. She has a lot of knowledge on that. Number two, from the previous discussion or from the previous activities that we've done as UCSPAK, we've realized that young women don't really participate in this. You have to force them. You have to some of them were telling us, come with something like beauty contest and all that. And we were saying, who will discuss about this if you don't want to really engage in this? So we feel like you again coming from that gender perspective, or from the ministry that is dealing with gender, it's really important. Not to forget, is currently on the object in the gender role. So she will be able really to assist us in shaping this. So having said that, there is one Dr. Reginald. Dr. Reginald has been a mentor to us. We've worked with him since, is it 2016?
Since the invention.
Yes, since UCSPAK 15. Yes.
The Garissa attack.
Since the Garissa attack, when we started. Now, having said that, let me just briefly talk about UCSPAK so that we can be able to understand what is this organization and why is it doing issues of this. UCSPAK was founded in 2015. And by that time, after the Garissa terror attack, by that time I was also serving as a student leader in the MKU. So after that, in the history, we know that student had never attacked student, but in the Garissa, we saw where comrades were the people who had planned and initiated the attack, or were the leaders in the attack. So we felt like there is a disconnect. Then apart from that, there were a lot of organizations that were coming in the institutions of Tanzania to talk about this. And the first point was to engage the student leadership. Because even if you approach the administration, if the student leadership doesn't endorse it, it will have some difficulty. So basically they were coming there. So we started a campaign called the Zero Radicalization Campaign, which we did it in the institution that I was serving, that was the MKU. Then after that, after it was very successful, I approached different leadership within Nairobi, where we were able to do it. Then we went to Maseno, which here was also serving as a student leader within the campaign. Then we also did it in Mombasa. Actually, even Evans is a founding member. At that time, he was also a student. So we were able also to do some activity together. And then from there, we approached the DCS for Interior. We told them about what we've done and why we feel we need to register this organization. Initially, there was some difficulty because we knew if we give platform this, you register. Even Koso, I'm sure it's not, by that time it was not registered. I really doubt if it's still, if it's registered. So they were saying if you give university students platform where they are organized and legally recognized, are increased making the problem. But we told you first of all acknowledge that there is a challenge, which the CS acknowledge that there is a challenge. They give us this benefit of doubt and allow us to register. He gave us a difficult task where he told us to at least look for 15 vice chancellors in those days, which we luckily we were able to look at. We were able to get vice chancellors who recommended the registration of the organization. Then from there we registered, and we still went back to the ministry and told them now we've registered. Kindly guide us and mentor us so that we can be able to implement what we wanted. And we are happy to report that up to now, the ministry gave us a space for our office in Councils, which is paid by the government. And we work and sit at the National Steering Committee on Peace Building and Conflict Management. We've been able to implement various projects, but because I have Joel, who is heading the program, I know he will be able to activate them better than me. Then from there, Joel, you can briefly talk about some few projects that we've implemented, and then so maybe you will still talk about briefly why we are here, and so that you can be able to understand the topic today. Then we open to
Thank you so much, and we really appreciate you finding time and having this kind of people coming together to discuss issues of youth. We don't take it for granted, so we really appreciate your time for coming here. So we've been able to do quite a number of activities since inception of this organization, and that was 2015. So the first activity that we were able to do was to commemorate the Garissa terror attack, which we did in 2016, just to bring all the students together and assure them that we can as well be one and fight the enemy if we are united. So that is a project that we started, and then which gave rise to another project which we had now to go hand in hand and also teach other students on how to live together. So we developed a training manual for all the university students leaders in the country. The training manual was developed in Tangaza University with two professors, Professor Selva, together with Professor Reginald Nangala, together with us as young people who were able to come up with that particular training material, and we were able to train around 73 student institutions of higher learning. So in every institution of higher learning, we were taking 4 representatives, that is one from the student leadership, one from the religious, and then one from also the people with disability within that particular institution, and just a normal student could ask a normal student, maybe a class rep or what, to come also and join. So we were able to train all of them who were trained in Tangaza University. It was also facilitated by Coffee International, which supported that particular program. Then later, since we were actually working closely with the Ministry of Interior, which linked us with the National Counterterrorism Center, so we started now the project of Zero Radicalization campaign, doing it with the National Counterterrorism Center, together with UNDP and UCSPAK, to now implement constructive dialogue among the students and come with a solution that could help counter violence extremism within the institutions of higher learning. So that is a project that we did for around 1 year in collaboration with those particular institutions. And we'll also be able to bring in the deans of students, the student leader, together with the students themselves, so that we can see on how we are making the program to be efficient. So after that, we were also able to come up with a program that also facilitated peaceful coexistence between the students and the administration and the local community. And that one we did at Maseno University, whereby there is a student who was selling bank, and then, but the bank, the main supplier was the villager. So the student became wiser than the villager and akamwasha the villager. So when aliwasha villager, the villager decided to kill the student. So and that happened in Maseno University. So and that is what we are saying, that a lot of things happening in our institutions of higher learning, and which needs very keen attention and see on how we are going to help the young people and the students at large. So when the villager killed the student because they have disagreed on the business, then the students retaliated to go and kill the villager. So when they killed the villager, they brought the villager to the market and they killed the villager when the villagers were seeing. So now it brought a lot of war till the school was closed. And you know our accommodation system, that no university can accommodate all the students within the university. So very many students were living outside. So the villager declared that we don't want to see these Maseno students living within our compounds. So they have to go back to their home, and they should not even close to our area. So when they closed the school, our association, together with FES, together with the National Steering Committee on Peace Building and Conflict Management, led a negotiation between the students, the village, and the administration to bring that harmonious relationship between the parties which were in conflict. And we are glad to report here that after that particular incident and intervention, there is no again such kind of conflict that has ever happened in Maseno University. So up to now, those people are living happily and they have never gone to war again. So after that, there is we also implemented another project for BBI. So, and that particular project was funded by USAID, whereby we went across the country to collect the views of the young people and see also the voice of young people within the institutions of higher learning, and reported the same to the BBI, the 14-member team. So we were able to divide the country into regions, and we were able to report, which our report was welcomed, and we have seen very many recommendations that we did captured into that particular report for BBI. So lastly, there is actually, even before that, for the young people, there is also a very big program that we did during election time in 2017. So UCSPAK was picked by International Foundation for Electoral System to implement the Changamka program. So the Changamka program was to promote the young people to participate in the electoral systems. So UCSPAK was the lead organization which was funded by IFES and then partnered with IBC to implement this. I remember it is also UCSPAK which advised the commission to take the BVR kits to the university premises, whereby the student from Mandela and is in University of Nairobi can register in University of Nairobi and vote in Mandela. So that one we were able to do it very well, with also collaboration and mentorship from our dear mentor here, Dr. Reginald. And that one we did very successfully, and we saw more than an increment of 4 million young people participating in the election. So lastly, currently there is a program that we are implementing called People to People's Dialogue in Amplifying Community Voices. And UCSPAK is the one which is the leading organization out of the consortium of 4 organizations, that is SEFA1, Pamoja for Transformation, Life and Peace, together with CJPC. So UCSPAK leads the youth component to implement that particular project. The project is being funded by USAID. So we hope we are going to collaborate more and have a very constructive engagement. So lastly, while we are here, we also want to ensure that the things that have been passed by the international community, also which Kenya is also a signatory, also see on how we can amplify the same and also implement for the benefit of the Republic of Kenya and also the young people. And the main one is the resolution 2250, which was passed by the United Security Council to ensure that we include young people in the decisions and participation of peace and security in the country. So the first did a research to understand on how young people can participate in building peace and security for the country. And we are going, the resolution has a partnership and integration and engagement. So those particular pillars, we are going to talk deeply in them, and then as experts in the youth sector, and also they have a wider experience in the youth sector, will also be able to guide us and tell us on how from this particular meeting we'll come up with a program which will ensure that the resolution 2250 in Kenya is well implemented. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joel. Just not to forget of the people who have supported this event. We have been supported by Reinvent, and UNDP in carrying out this event, plus National Youth Council. Those are the 3 institutions that have supported this event. And the reason, actually, initially we had thought of having a discussion where we can bring the panelists so that we can just discuss. But from the discussion that we had, most of the people proposed, because this is the first meeting, you know, we say that we are directing a question to Evans, and yet Lydia has a point that will be able to really assist. Because what the partners or the donors are very interested is, they want after this we have the intervention that shall have been proposed, we develop something like a project or something that we can be able to implement together. So we are looking at not a one-day activity, but a long-term activity that can be able to really assist the peace building in this country. Yeah, so basically why you've seen even a roundtable discussion is because we are thinking on if we unpack it together and try to come up with a solution or intervention that we can be able to implement together, that will have more impact than just doing it like a one-day, bring, discuss, then you go. I don't know if the panelists are okay with that. You're okay with that? Okay, thank you so much. Maybe now I can hand it over to Dr. Regina to take the discussion from here. Thank you, Dr.
So thank you very much, Chacha and Joel. Yeah, I always love working with them. When they call even midnight, I pick their calls because I know the work they do is really noble and beautiful. Just to emphasize 2 points about UCSPAK. This peacefulness you see in universities, I think if it was not for UCSPAK, the country would be really in chaos. But UCSPAK took it as their call to make sure that they train leaders, then these leaders promote peace in universities and colleges. And we have seen a great change in the way young people are looking at education in universities. And that's a big plus. So the training of trainers they do is very important. So when I see most of you here, you actually contribute to this agenda of UCSPAK. The second one that's very important that Joel emphasized is how to engage young people. Young people are very gullible. Remember when I was a student at the University of Nairobi, I never wanted to participate in university politics, but somehow I was swept to understand. And from there I came to learn that it's very easy to be swayed left, right by different political establishments. So UCSPAK is just standing in as a pillar to make sure that there's direction. So why are we here today? We'd like to brainstorm on these 5 areas so that we can see what comes out of it. And again, what we'll do is if we can finish, we exhaust the questions, well and good. Even if we say let's reach number 3 is fine. But as long as we come up with something that can help UCSPAK and the partners come up with a good program. So very briefly, I'll just maybe give you a little bit of a synopsis of this Agenda 2250. What is it about? This is a resolution that came into force in 2015 at the UN General Council. And this resolution, as part of the UN Security Council Resolution 2250, is about youth, peace, and security. So this is what it says. It recognizes that young people play an important role and positive role in the maintenance and prevention of insecurity in the world. Especially they should be part and parcel of the international community promoting peace and security. And so to define this, they came up with the 5 pillars that are in front of us: participation, protection, prevention, partnerships, disengagement, and reintegration. And there is a kind of a caveat there that the importance and the role played by the youth is to prevent, reduce conflict, promote sustainability, bring about inclusiveness, and success to peace building. And if you look at these 5 points we are going to discuss, actually are part of the principles of good governance. What does it mean, good governance? If people are not living, but participating, they're not protected, they're not preventing bad opinions to flourish, there's no partnership, and there's no creation of integration. What is it about? So today, our task is to see how do we engage in participation, protection, prevention, partnership, disengagement. So what I would do is, if you all agree, again, in the spirit of good governance, that we look at number 1, we do a round discussion. We look at number 2, round discussion. If some of the points in number 1 and number 2 have been exhausted, and then we don't need to really to repeat them, but just to see where we are. And it's a brainstorming session. There's no right or wrong answer. It's your opinion that counts here. And just feel free to participate. Are we agreeing on that? Are we okay? Yes. So in the Zoom meeting, they only show a hand like this, but now we want it to. Okay, so let's just kick off this question of participation. How is the organization involved in the implementation of Resolution 2250, and what are the challenges faced? How can the youth serving organization synergize efforts to realize the successful attainment of the UN Security Council Resolution 2250? So sometimes when I've facilitated workshops like this, what I do is that I ask, but sometimes culturally people don't like being the first. So I just say, anybody on my right, anybody on my left, so that we are all able to participate. Just feel free. So participation. Anybody ready? Yeah, I can see my friend is ready. Go ahead.
No, I was just checking. It doesn't mean I was ready.
I know.
But I can start.
Yes, please.
When you speak about participation, it has several components and aspects. And from where I come from, the political world, it is a very key component where if you fail to involve them, it becomes chaotic. So what it is stipulated in Political Parties Act, or now each and every political party can be able to involve the youth. In terms of leadership, it is a requirement that you must have in your neck a youth leader, and even the entire neck should meet to that gender rule. Apart from that, even in terms of secretariat, each party must have a code of conduct and how they are going to manage their staff. And it has in those aspects on how they are able to have the youth participating. When you go down to even in terms of opportunities, when it goes to issues like party lists, which usually has issues, in what IEPC has done, and even the political parties through the Office of Registrar, they have made some regulations which, like there is a list for gender topper, you must also balance. Even if it's a list for women, you must have the whole ones and the other one, it's a mix-up. When you come to the marginalized list, there is somebody representing the youths. That's why we have our colleague representing the youth at the county assembly. So basically, in terms of both the political leadership and even in terms of the electoral leadership, there has been every aspect of participation. But now the challenge is faced, you find like, when you tell somebody, kuja participate kwa siasa. So the first thing is, what am I getting? So most of the youths put their personal interest ahead instead of looking at the bigger picture. Somebody will tell you, for me to come to your meeting, I must have to come and get something. But you don't know that you have to build structures, networks, as the way Lydia was saying, networks you have to build over time. So those are part of the challenges, because you find most of this participation for youth, they become so much involving up to an extent some political parties cannot be able to sustain financially. So it goes to a point whereby you have to pinch yourself in terms of finances. So yeah, that's it.
That's a very good point you're raising, That participation is at every level.
It's every level.
Yes, and the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is very clear. Sometimes they call it a devolution constitution, sometimes they call it a participation constitution. Because from the first chapter to the end, it calls people to participate, and you emphasize very well, especially bringing in the different gender, people who are marginalized, people with different types of disability, and of course the youth. Then chapter 11, that is called the devolution mandate. They always talk about participation. That's very important. And then the last point you raise is very, very important. Young people have been used or seduced to think that every time you participate, you must get something. But they're not thinking about what I do is good for the good of the nation. So maybe the question would be then, how do we change this culture that whenever I participate, even a discussion just is whether the road will pass here, I must be given something. Very interesting events. Anybody else would like to continue from there?
Just to finish.
Yes, please. Yes.
As I said, each party has a code of conduct which will deposit with IPC. So as a way of even having, I know we'll discuss ahead in terms of even preventing, like now somebody, I'm on a CIASA using you, there is always a code of conduct which you sign as an aspirant and also as a party member, which you have to abide by. So that in case there are chaos, there are consequences. That's why you rarely see an aspirant coming in front and saying, let's fight so and so. They just do behind the scenes. So that's a challenge, because how are you able to manage the issues behind the scenes? Usiku wanapanga mchana, unaona tu ni vita kila mahali.
It's another very interesting point. Okay, so I would like to add on something. We still talk about participation. How do you participate? Do we participate? Okay. You are ready? Yeah? I can see your hand. Yeah? Yes. I'm not imposing. Yeah?
It's always easier to come after the first person. We can feel a bit confident.
Yes.
I think on the issue of participation, and I don't know whether anybody has bothered to do the science on this, but the fact that there is that demand by young people that, if you're going to call me for your meeting, if I come for that political forum, you need to facilitate me. That says something. It says that there is an assumption that whatever is happening is not of my interest, it is of some other interest. So my involvement, I'm coming so that you can advance your interest. So compensate me for facilitating your, whatever it is you're doing. And so that did not just come to pass, because I suspect in the professor's time, there was a lot of self-propelling initiative by the young people of his generation. I doubt anybody used to, be given anything. But the feeling or perception or whatever has evolved over time. So there is a deep-seated understanding that I'm coming so that you can help yourself. So compensate me and be on your way. Go get those things you are pursuing, because I know they have nothing to do with me. And so instead of telling people stop asking for money, we have to engage ourselves in a more complex social engineering process to deconstruct this thing, because it is not a myth. The people have been betrayed constantly, repeatedly, to a point where this has become an understanding, that an automatic assumption, an automatic understanding, oh, that's what's happening. Oh, ametuita, okay. Tunajua anaenda kupasu kitu fulani, so watu sort sisi aendelee na maisha yake. If he succeeds, good for him and his family. And that is true for NGOs, it is true for government, it is true for literally everybody. So how do we come back? Do we bring back the mentality to actually, it is no longer true? Or it is true maybe, but it is not true for this, that we are doing this one. How do you? So that's a more complex endeavor. Because that view is deep-seated, I can tell you that. There's a lot of skepticism. So maybe working with younger, less skeptical youth, catching them earlier before they are disillusioned. Maybe that could help to recreate the confidence in political participation or in participation in general. So you catch them when maybe they are in high school or they are in university earlier on. So we grow a new crop of civically engaged people who see the meaning of it outside of these other concerns.
Very, very important points you raised. Yeah. You can just paraphrase two, and I think they're bringing something very important. Because I'm beginning to see if, let me say, UCSPAK was to start a project of engaging young people to think that when you participate in something, it's for your good and not for the other. And that can start from a very low level coming upward. So it's like, okay, in Kenya they don't like the word civic education, but that is what was called. You start from the grassroots going upward, then people start learning how to be responsible. So that even the parliament ya wananchi from the primary school level is organized by UCSPAK, primary, secondary. By the time you reach university, you are actually very well groomed. Recently, I think I wrote a paper last week for the Star, but they didn't publish, but the issue of internship. So internship should be that at every level, there should be people being trained to take up skills. Who is shadowing Raila? Are you shadowing who? No, I'm not sure. Who is shadowing Raila? Who is shadowing Chacha? Who is shadowing Joel? Who is shadowing you? So that we build it up. By the time now, like I used to be very impressed. I did my studies in UK, I was in Oxford, and I used to be impressed that at the age of 21, they already know that Chacha will be Prime Minister and he will be Chancellor of Exchequer. You will be Foreign Affairs, you will be Trade, they already knew at the age of 21. And that's exactly what happened to Tony Blair with Gordon Brown, David Cameron with Osborne, Theresa May, and that's how the system is.
Is it formal?
It's what you're talking about, facilitation from the Political Parties Act, from the lower level. And I studied that, and I remember meeting him. I said, this is wonderful. So I already know that you'll be Prime Minister at the age of 40. See, I already know that you'll be Minister of Foreign Affairs. I know that you are going to be Minister for Trade by the time. You see, the system is there. So when Theresa May comes up and she's going to be Prime Minister, they don't say you're a woman or no. She's already there. So what you're saying is very important. I think is a point that I want to take very seriously. How to groom young people from the early age coming up. Then you also bring in a very important point. Is there the science of participation? Now, I teach, there's a course everybody now loves in Tangaza with the PhD students. Normally I don't like talking like that because then people get scared to participate. But let me tell you, it's a course I designed and at the help of Chacha and Chacha and people like Magoha. We say now, let's look at our current culture. Did we have governance? Yes. Was it participatory? It was more participatory than it is now. And everybody knew their role in the traditional culture. And when we met on the tree, and everybody had a voice. And so, the issue here is, if we go back to this traditional system, we can bring out the synergy. Actually, you just look at any Kenyan community, and you look at how they are organized, there is a lot of participation. But when you come to modern politics, participation is not there. So how do we tame that? And of course, as you said, during my time, it was YK 92, Youth for Kano 92. There was Jirongo, the Deputy President, and the others. Now, because the Constitution was very silent on this, and this is also part of the Constitution that we need to see that can we amend. The Constitution did not encourage a lot of participation as it is now. It was very silent. So it just needed a political party to have money, give a group of young people, and then they go distributing. Now, we don't want that culture. And that's why now the culture of handouts started. That I can only work with Joel if I'm getting something. I can only work with my sister if I'm getting something. But suppose we think of what is good for me. So that social engineering is a very good point. I'm emphasizing this because as we move along, we want to come up with some kind of clear guidelines on policy. Which areas can we narrow down to help us develop projects? So I'm already seeing 3 projects being written. Okay. Anybody else? So please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Regina. I think just the same way we are saying, riding after people have taught, wisdom just I'm riding on the wisdom of the 2 people. And of this, because right now we are looking at the first pillar, which is participation. And I feel, number one, from what everyone said, we've been able to highlight that indeed there are many policies and programs that are really in place to ensure that young people participate. But again, from that, we've also highlighted that there is a challenge with young people. And the challenge is majority of young people have developed that mentality that they need to be paid for them to participate. That's the challenge that we identify in the participation pillar. And as a way forward, one of the recommendations that has come is we need to invest from the young age, so that this person, as he continue, if you begin investing from primary, secondary, by the time when Africa University, you find that this person has that urge of participation. A good example is the people who have participated in the Scout and the like. You find that these people have that volunteering. They normally volunteer, just participate. So as a way forward, one of the things that we've recommended is to come up with a platform that will be able to nurture people from the primary at the lowest level. This is primary, then secondary, and then institutions of higher learning.
Very nice. Yeah.
Then in this, I just wanted to mention I was privileged also to attend a COMESA boot camp, which the Ministry of Youth recommended me to represent young people in the country. And I think there are some lessons that I was able to learn from specifically Zimbabwe. And maybe this could be a place where we can benchmark and be able to see how they are working. Zimbabwe have something they call youth parliament. Yeah, youth parliament. This one is young people below the age of 16, I think. All those who have not attained the age of youth. Very young people who are still in high school and primary. And all these people, they have a structure the same with the government of Zimbabwe. And what they do, they have a president, they have a speaker, they have all those structure. They have a chief justice, all the structure of the government. And what they do basically is to engage those young people to participate. And this one, you find that even when they are opening, they normally open the parliament, and when they are opening the parliament, even the president of the republic normally attend, and all state officials. So for me, I'm saying this is also another platform where we can be able to look at how has it worked maybe for young people, how can we be able to, what can we learn, and what can we pick to propose, even equivalent to the same structure that will really involve young people, that will be recognized from all platforms. That time we were having the president of the junior parliament, they call it junior parliament, Zimbabwe junior parliament. I'm telling you that guy was very sharp and very smart. And you know, even when they are opening and all the media are there, the president is there, you can imagine the platform that he has given that young person. So for me, I'm feeling this recommendation that has come is really important. I'm just re-emphasizing that the point that has come to invest from the lowest level so that these people can have that urge of volunteering is really important. So I hope that point is very good.
But very good, very good.
And so the wisdom of talking after other people using motto and other
Yes,
people.
no, it's called mind mapping. Mapping. So Evans created the dot and then she built. So it's very good. So when you look at participation, I think it's a very good point. But yes, please go ahead.
Thank you.
You just let me see in Nkosi.
Lukosi.
Or Lukosi, not in Nkosi.
Please, not a Lukosi.
Okay, very nice Lukosi. Thank
Yes.
you. Welcome.
Okay, so in regard to participation, first of all, I would like to bring you up to speed on what National Youth Council has been doing in its capacity to promote participation for young people in governance and all issues of active citizenship. So Youth Senate is a state corporation that is formed under the Youth Policy and the National Youth Council Act. And Youth Senate, National Youth Council is the one that is mandated to represent young people. It's the official youth representative body in this country. And it's the one that is still mandated to implement the Kenya Youth Development Policy. So, under the Youth Development Policy, the challenges of young people have been outlined. And the main reason why young people become maybe agents of insecurity, agents of conflict in the country is because of unresolved challenges that affect these young people. Under the youth development policy, it outlines the challenges, the main challenges, challenges of unemployment, challenges of mental health. There is political influence on young people. Young people, most of them are affected by drug abuse and idleness. So what the National Youth Council has been doing, it's been trying as much as possible to advocate for solutions towards these challenges that are affecting young people. So advocacy is one of the main functions of the National Youth Council. And in terms of advocacy, when you are talking of participation, you cannot talk of participation without talking about inclusive governance. You cannot talk of participation when young people are not included in decision-making processes. So the National Youth Council has been pushing for appointments for young people to these important decision-making bodies. Currently, though the success is minimal, but we can say there is progress. Through National Youth Council, we have a representative for young people in the Youth Enterprise. It's called?
Youth Enterprise Development Fund.
Yes, Youth Enterprise Development Fund. And also, National Youth Council has also pushed for 2 representatives in the Employment Authority, of which you see Employment Authority is like a very serious organization, a very serious agency that is supposed to be empowered to address the challenges of young people in terms of employment. Another function of the National Youth Council is in terms of advocacy, it has been creating space for public participation for young people. You realize that most of these young people, they are subject to manipulation by politicians and other factors in the society because they don't have information. So the National Youth Council ensures that whenever there is a bill that is passed that touches on interests of young people, it creates a platform for young people to participate. And we did that. We created a platform for public participation for the Biashara Fund. The Biashara Fund bill, which is one of the most important legislation pertaining to employability of young people. Then it has also, we also did public participation for on the NYC bill, because currently there is some disintegration, because NYC is supposed to be like the official representative youth body in the country. We need to have representatives from the ward level to the constituency to the county and to have a council. But as it is right now, there is a bill which seems to be watering down the mandate of the NYC, and it was we took it upon ourselves to create a platform for public participation, to develop memoranda, to do what, to ensure that young people's voices are heard in that regard. Another function of any participation, as my previous colleagues have said, is in terms of volunteerism. NYC tries as much as possible to nurture the spirit of volunteerism across the country, and it has been rolling out projects in partnership with some community-based organizations and youth-serving organizations to ensure that young people are actively involved in issues of governance and nation building. The challenges. You talked about that lack of spirit of volunteerism, and yes, it is a serious challenge. And I also feel that another challenge that we need to think about is the lack of mentorship. The lack of mentorship, in as much as we are saying that we want young people, we want to nurture them from the early age going upwards, but without mentors without mentors, the elderly people, the ones who are in government already, if you are telling a young person to take this path, you are preaching water and you yourself, you are drinking some wine or spirit, it's also something that we need to think about. Then another challenge is lack of spaces for inclusion of young people in these decision-making processes. It's still a big challenge for us.
It's very good.
Yes.
Thank you. I think you have brought us some very important points. Some of them will come in as we look at policy. The issue of the National Youth Council, I think we'll be asking how can National Youth Council collaborate with UCSPAK? Which areas? UCSPAK has a role to play, you have a role to play, which areas? And then this question of advocacy. As a person who teaches advocacy, I'm always worried, how is advocacy carried out? How is it carried out? So what are these principles of advocacy? Mobilize, lobby, network, conscientize stakeholders, powers that be, decision makers, then you arrive at a decision. So can the young people learn that by themselves? Can they take the mantle? And if UCSPAK was to work with you, would you come up with what they call principles that govern that? So it's a kind of a syllabus. So thank you very much. I know my strategy for approach is that the first part people tend to talk long, that's okay, because we want you to exhaust what you want to say. Then the second one is saying, oh, can we have only 2 minutes per person? Then we move forward, then we can finish everything. But you would go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think I work in a place where participation is just the key and is the driver to everything. There is no law that can be passed without public participation. There is no blueprint that establishes a county government. Talk about the CIDP, it has to have public participation. Talk about the ADP, that's the County Integrated Development Plan, and the Annual Development Plan, which is the baseline document that seeks to implement the various development or other projects that are being done by the county government then. So participation is key to everything, and I have participated in majorly most of the legislative processes. I've sponsored several legislations. I've sponsored 2 bills. One is the Nairobi City County pop-up market bill that seeks to establish an avenue where hawkers and other street vendors can be allowed space to trade without being harassed by the so-called kanjo officials, where certain streets can be blocked and then it becomes a pop-up market and people apply to come and sell goods and services. And that attracted a lot of public participation, especially from the hawkers, who most of them I consider to be youth. I have sponsored the Nairobi City County, is it called the county corporations bill, which seeks to actually establish bodies. This is way long before the deed of transfer came into force. So I had a thinking that we can have specific services removed directly from the executive and being taken to a body that then can make sure that the implementation of those functions are not impacted by the political nature of the county. So I envisioned that we actually move away the health, we move away the housing, and we move away the water and sanitation. And those apparently are the exact things that actually were moved by the deed of transfer. And that my bill was way long, which we in 2019 it passed, and then we waited. So in that also there was proper public participation. We have a youth caucus in the county, which I actually serve as the chair. And in that we have engaged several bodies. For example, I think tomorrow we are supposed to have a meeting with NDI, who are sponsoring youth to look at the ADP. the annual development plan. We are now in the process of doing the annual development plan for next year. So that is a document that we want to make sure that it actually touches majorly on the youth, and we are focusing on purely this resolution 2250, youth, peace and security. So we have to make sure that the ADP captures it, so that when it comes to the implementation of these specific things that we are capturing, it is not that we are trying to enter it inside there. We are trying to then make sure that it is implemented, because after you get it in there, then it will only be implemented. If we don't get it in there, then there's nothing. So we are actually organizing for more of a public participation for the youth, which will probably be held at City Hall, to just highlight the issues that the ADP is not capturing, and to streamline those issues to make sure that it actually aligns with Resolution 2250. We have also engaged with the United Nations Habitat, UN Habitat. I think they have been having several programs to actually implement this Resolution 2250, which we have had a front-line role in it. In fact, they had actually promised to set up, just before Corona, to actually set up an office. We give them an office, they fund it and fully sponsor everything, and we focus on how we can do model laws for Nairobi, purely for Nairobi. We make sure that all laws for Nairobi are done, whether they will be implemented or not, but they are written, whether it's bills or motions, let them be written, let them be passed. Let us now start pushing for implementation for all the laws that are actually happening, and that we were going to actually have a public participation in all that. We've had to mobilize at times, so legislators who are youth at heart, and others who are youthful. We've had to then organize for us to go to specific meetings so that we can then give the political goodwill. We've had several meetings where we have been invited and we have come in numbers just to support the whole youth agenda and to make sure that we participate fully and ensure that Nairobi is actually considered as the capital city it is. I'm happy with what Buddy is actually doing, and I think it's something that all of us can then see. And if the future of Nairobi is that, then I think we should then start pushing for more youthful, more youth taking up such jobs within the county of Nairobi and also in the national outlook. So it's something. I think one of the major challenges that we face is purely support. Like for example, if I am the one, I do my own research. I do my own. If I had a body that was actually researching and saying this and this, there are gaps in this and these legislations, then let us find a way of getting this legislation done. Then that is something that I would be happy to then just sit and push all those bills and motions and we actually enact them. So all of them that I have actually done, all those bills, some like the county corporations bill, I was told it cannot be done. I drafted it by myself, went to Kenya Law Reforms Commission, told them this is possible. They had to look for something in the constitution to make sure that it actually aligns. Then they actually aligned it for me, brought it back, and I pushed it to the end until it was implemented. The pop-up market also, I was told it's not possible. It is now our third reading. That's the final stage in the preparation of the bill. So it is a research unit that then can then sponsor specific legislation that can say, Nairobi, we need, this is the model of how Nairobi is supposed to be. Where are the gaps? These are the gaps. These are the gaps that can be fixed with legislation. Let's do legislation. Then we do all of those, and then we are done. Then I will push for implementation. I think that is something that we can work together, especially with UCSPAK and other like-minded organizations to actually fulfill such an obligation.
So thank you, Kiongozi Mbugua. This is really good. I think 2 points you're emphasizing and that connects also with unemployment for the youth. I think for you now, what you can help UCSPAK do is how can UCSPAK work with you to support unemployment of the youth. And we start in Nairobi County. And that UCSPAK do for me a research, come up with this project. And I'm willing to go to Mbadi to give me money to support this initiative. And if Mbadi becomes stubborn, you say, oh, let's book, I can book for an appointment at State House. We go, we see Uhuru. That's how things work, eh? Yeah. And so you are focused on a particular project and you do it. So that then the youth will learn what you just said. Then the youth will learn.
And probably just to say about
okay. You'll come back later. Now we wanted to have. And I know you're a politician. Politicians have no full stop. They only have a comma.
He's actually not a politician.
I'm not a politician.
What is it?
He used to be an advisor, actually.
No, he's an accountant.
This guy is not a politician. He was a technical officer, and then he went.
That's another debate.
And he got himself nominated.
All of us at this table. The moment you discuss politics, we're discussing politics now. See the definition of politics?
Yeah, true.
Is who gets what, when, and how.
Yeah.
And when, how, those are very, very strong. Those are like 1 million pages.
Which is true.
So the moment he says he's representing, then he has put himself in that hot seat. Okay, I just emphasize that this what we're looking at is all of us are here to see how do we work with UCSPAK. So one project is bringing out is how to fight unemployment. And he's emphasizing, and we want to hold him on account for that. He's emphasizing that he's come up with a very beautiful bill. I like that. I like the bill. And even I would like to read it about hawkers, blocking the streets and all that. So what I would say, even you can also help us to help you, is which model works best for blocking streets. I lived in the Netherlands, and the Dutch model is one of the best. You would block, like Saturday, Uhuru Highway is blocked, and everybody knows. So you can walk from Westlands to Nyayo Stadium, seeing everything done by the young people.
Blocking when demonstrating or blocking?
No. Stores.
No, you just block the road and it becomes it becomes a mall.
A mall.
Something like that.
It's a market day.
Yes,
It was called
Placemaking Week.
Okay.
Yes.
There was also another one done by Youth Agenda with the county.
Okay.
I actually developed the concept for it before.
So what it means, the models are there.
Youth market.
Yes.
Street
The
market.
models
If you
are
think
there.
about Masai Market, that is exactly what it is.
Yes. Okay, can even now, for example, just try it off as a not Ronald Gala, but maybe Moy Avenue. And then what I say this Tuesday is only the day when we block off that for Nairobi.
Yeah.
If you go to Nyeri, it's Wednesday. You go to Nakuru, it's Thursday, like that. So every week there's something. And then the youth are registered, then they have caravans. You're pulling, you have a truck, you pull, you drive. Your caravan is your shop, but also a room to sleep in. So Monday to Friday.
You are in Nairobi.
Yes, and then
you go to Nyeri.
Exactly, because Wednesday is the market.
It's a caravan.
Yes.
Sounds like a beautiful project already.
That you come up with a national.
Like it kama tuk-tuk, si ndio?
Yes.
I can tell you, actually, when we were doing the concept for the street market, when we did it back, that was how we had intended, and we had tied it to the issue, to the policy goals of Vision 2030, to advance what they call the 24-hour economy.
Yeah.
So we had linked it to that, and if you need language for that,
so I don't want to lose his point, because I'm tying all these points where you started, because we're looking at how do we help UCSPAK to work in these processes. So unemployment is key, but how? And then post-corona, of course, there's going to be livelihood support. Post-corona, what do we do? Right now we have a project with the UCSPAK, and the Tangaza and Wumi. They're looking at sometimes the roof initiatives, which also UCSPAK and you reach families better than when you use political establishment. Because the families know exactly who is, why didn't you come to the mosque today? Why did you come to church today? This kind of things. Okay, so this is where we are. Okay, very good point. We'll have another moment. You're going to have a moment. The first part I always want people to speak longer, then the second one we run. Please go ahead.
Okay, mine is just in addition to what Evans
I love your name. Let me just make sure that you get it right. Amran.
Yes.
Amran.
Yes. Okay, mine is just as additional to what Mr. Evans and Ms. Lydia said.
Yes.
In regards to participation, youth participation. They
Yes.
talk about grooming from when they are young. But again, personally, I feel this participation and youth grooming will only work if, you know, those stakeholders, let's say today UCSPAK is having an event or something. If themselves, they don't tell the youth that tunawapatia kitu kidogo, you see, the youth would come flocking. They need to tell youth that we are having a training or a workshop of this thing, but hakuna pesa. Now you will know who is interested, who want to come, you know, voluntarily without being given handout. In that scenario now, you will know if maybe it's about leadership, who wants to be who is a true leader in this contest, who wants to come to this workshop wanting to learn more about leadership. You see, if maybe, let's say you want to have something to do with beauty contest. And personally, I'm not even interested in beauty contest, but because when nimesikia there is something, I'll definitely come. Not because I want to gain something, like that knowledge of beauty contest and all those stuff, but because I want to have some, you know, coins. You see? And when it comes to now the political thing, we have grown this tendency of politicians going to the ground and giving voters handouts. If maybe you could have come with a certain law that protects the voters, you know, from these self-imposed leaders who want to buy the voters and take advantage of their vulnerability. Just because I'm vulnerable, I can't have maybe, because of the unemployment and all this stuff, I can't have my next meal. Chacha will come and say, I want your vote. Wacha nikupatie sotano. Sotanivotia. I know perfectly well that Chacha cannot be a leader. Hawezi hakuna kitu atanisaidia, but because I want that 500 shillings, I will vote for him. You see? If maybe we had laws that say you have to do this thing like this without having to give handouts, maybe through that you could have gotten, if it is a leader, you get a true leader. If it's maybe something that you want to pass across, you'll have people who are really interested in that field so that they can go to the next level. But if it's always after, you know, you want to get the numbers. You know, there are some organizations, maybe they want to capture 200 people. And for them to do that, they tell the youths, kuna pesa inatoka hapa kujeni. Now everybody comes flocking. For them, it's just they want the numbers. They don't care who gains something, who gains what. So I think, yeah, in my opinion, laws should be enacted to help, you know, streamline these things of handout and incentive and yeah.
Very good point.
Yes, good. Just a question on what she has said. One of the challenges you've said is young people don't want to participate where there is no money. But again, the issue that has been there, if you've not, maybe you can find somebody is not interested in participating in this. For example, a discussion like this, but immediately he comes for one event, the interest start growing. I understand that you are the first female chair to be elected as a chairperson in Egerton University, which I believe most of the female students maybe were not or are not willing to participate in such kind of arrangement. What different or what made you to be interested that you can be able maybe to recommend? Because you see you participated in something that is not so much common to the female people. Maybe you can also try to recommend something that unique we can do to ensure that maybe specifically even the female colleague can participate in peace building and other spheres.
Very good point. Because we are discussing and we are connecting points, what I just do is keep teasing out what seems to be a standout point. Because what your Amran have brought out is maybe UCSPAK would think of, with all of us, coming up with the values or principles of youth participation. And one of them is this culture of volunteerism. without necessarily being owned. Because every group gives handouts. But why do they give handouts? Perhaps instead of giving handouts, we can do like, I think when UCSPAK came to Tangaza, we do training of trainers. So after doing 2-3 training, then we give you a certificate. Then a certificate at least is the only thing you can get. And so this kind of thing, because even terror groups will give you handouts. I think it's Chacha who shared one time why he's been thought of UCSPAK. That if you want to control, you recruit young people to terror groups, you start by giving a sweet. The next time they buy you cigarette, the next time is Coca-Cola. Then the next time, you find your child is coming home with 1,000 shillings, then 10,000, then 50. After that they disappear. Was that case of the kid who disappeared? There was a colleague of mine, of the brother, was done like that. Yes. So then we need to say, then in view of all these experiences, which kind of principles do you want to bring forward? And that's a very good point. Then it ties down together with the internship, mentorship, and bringing these people to understand. I would like somebody to be an understudy of, let's say, Uhuru, an understudy of Raila. And then we say, what principles you can learn from? Without necessarily, of course, now the problem is that these people can easily give you a status you have never even dreamt of. Then to drop down there is very difficult. But you can have, like in schools, you organize this event for such young people. And young people love those kind of things. Okay. Any other point? I think you are the only one who hasn't spoken.
Yes, what I'd just like to add on top of what everyone says, especially to emphasize on her point, is about public awareness. Because as even you venture into partnerships with stakeholders and other development partners, what kind of partners are you, is an organization, for example, like UCSPAK, looking for? Have you clustered your partners? Because sometimes you find people getting into partnerships, you don't know what to expect from those partners. First of all, let me use an example of students. I don't know, students, I can use an example of students. Are they aware of UCSPAK? Because in as much as you want to push for your agenda and mandate for the to be public, it has to be public. I don't know, it's a bit redundant, but it has to be public for it to be known. So are people aware of that? So public awareness is key. And then in as much as we are trying to attain these objectives, the main hindrance, especially to the youth right now, is unemployment. Because you find out that unemployment will trigger all these things. Radical extremism, it will trigger terrorism, it will trigger all those kinds of vices. So those are the 2 points that I wanted to add to what everyone else has voiced.
Yes. No, very good point. I just when the president is coming in, have to give space. So who is coming? The chairman. The chairman and they are very good friends. You know that the chairman would go up to the next house. Okay, so I like what you say. You know this organization, and my friend, maybe you better move here, because I'd like to see people's faces, and because of social distancing, I have to sit here. The museum is coming, so we need to sit here. But what you are saying is very important. Do you know whom you are creating partnerships with? Okay, and there are some organizations that we know, like we know UNDP, we know USAID, that's okay. But the others we don't know. I have a friend of mine, he's an American, he just lives here. He's a professor with me, we work together. Last year we did a very interesting research on the judiciary of Kenya. But then he's doing another study on China. But he's using a lobby group from another part of the world. And what he's getting there is a lot of information. Myself, oh, so I can have an organization with this name, but I don't know what happens inside there. Oh my God. So, of course, UCSPAK will not want to work like that. They want to work with groups that are very clear. This is what they do. You can even walk to the offices and out, and I'm very happy they're able to do that. So that's very important. Okay, we want to wrap up this point.
Prof, before
because we want to move to the other 4.
Yes, I would
Unless
like
it's
to.
really burning.
It's really important.
Okay,
I feel
go
like
ahead.
I did a disservice to the national government because I emphasized on his points and forgot to say what it is that our organization, which is government,
Yes,
had
so
done
now I'm going to time 2 minutes.
Implement, yes.
Okay.
I'll be very fast.
Yes.
I'd just like to highlight a few things that the national government had adopted.
Yes.
And I think it's now an ongoing practice, is to co-create with young people.
Yes.
So whenever there is an important youth targeted either program or initiative,
Yes.
there is now an effort to include young people in the steering leadership of those processes, whether it's International Youth Day, whether you're talking about project design. It is now happening on almost like a normal basis. And then what we also did is that we inserted that language in the national youth policy. So young people now can demand it as a matter of policy implementation, that everything will be done in a co-created manner with government. So that issue of steering committees. We have also created a culture where when you do a bill, for instance, when you're creating a new body, a parastatal or something like that, especially if it has any implications on young people, which most of them are tending to do, you assert the space, the place of young people you create positions that are specifically for them. So for instance, the National Youth Council bill, when we were redoing the National Youth Council architecture and created a parastatal, we gave 2 positions to the national youth, to young people. So you have 1 male, 1 female. I believe it's the same thing that was done with the employment bill. Yeah. And so you begin to see, even in the creation now of those governance spaces, there's an awareness that actually young people also represent the face of Kenya. They need to be in these spaces. National processes such as the Building Bridges initiative, what the government is doing is, because we know also young people, they need that confidence, somebody to push them a little, support them. So whenever there are national conversations, for instance, on this issue of gender, on the issue of Biashara Fund, Kenya, those kinds of things, we go out of our way. Government is going out of its way to bring in young people to contribute to these national discourses. So what we did at that time is we looked at the young people who seemed to be interested to have the conversation on BBI, and we supported them. I believe we opened up some of our facilities at KSG, our officers. So whatever little thought processes they had, we were able to support that so they could articulate their points better. I believe the minister also used... Yes.
Finish that sentence.
Yes, so those kinds of things. So I think basically just to say that the government is leading from the front when it comes to youth participation.
I think what we're trying to do is that everybody is doing something.
Yes.
But how do we tie that with UCSPAK?
So UCSPAK, what UCSPAK can do?
No, you're right. Sorry, I don't want to push you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I don't want to, it's not like a debate whether you are right or wrong, just that you already made a point, but now I'm just concluding that point by saying, so whatever you do, where is the entry point for UCSPAK, and how can UCSPAK now be a part of this process? Because the key issue that you talk about participation here is that the young people, some of them are very reluctant. But at what level can they participate? But what is this participation? I think we're narrowing down on this whole question of unemployment. Unemployment is a major issue in agenda of jobs. Then they'll be looking for handouts, they'll be looking for somebody to give them a small token, they'll be looking for this. But if they have this opportunity to employ themselves, what can we do? So can participation, any process of participation, make sure that from the lowest level, and he emphasized very strongly, from the lowest level, we're already calculating this culture of being part and parcel of society, but then we are focused on many tentacles of, for example, unemployment is one. Bills, yes, bills, but bills sometimes they're just a rubber stamp because they can appear in the newspaper, can be anywhere, it's already participation. They can appear on radio, that's already participation. But have they really participated? So these are the questions we are asking. Sorry, I just want us to move now a little bit forward, and Chairman, if that's okay. So move now to point number 2. is protection. Here now, I think we have exhausted most of the points. Usually the first part covers almost everything. Here, when you talk about protection, we just 2 minutes, how you interpret it, how you understand it, and then how do you want to move forward. For example, in your opinion, how can young people be protected from violence, including sexual and gender-based violence? Go ahead.
Okay, in my opinion, I think this again comes back to, I put it in a way that maybe unemployment,
Yes.
which leads to drug abuse,
Yes.
leading to violence. Okay, now, as an organization or maybe the government itself, how will it come in? Because you are the people who can curb this. In my opinion, I don't know if I will be maybe offensive or something. These things, let me say we are in man-eat-man society, whereby there are some powerful people at the top wanting, to eat their own in order to get something in return. Let's say now, where I come from in Isiolo, 90% of youth are into drugs. 90% of young boys have dropped school because of, being into drugs. Not because they want it, but because there are some people, sending drugs to that county, selling it to young boys, because themselves they're getting something out of that without minding the lives of the young people. Now, if maybe the government was honest enough, and tried to be selfless in protecting the young ones, you could have been a step further by dealing with those cartels, by not wanting to venture into some illegal things, ruining the life of the young ones. Because I was one time working with a certain CBO, and we went to Mombasa juvenile, under 17, who have been imprisoned. And most of them, if you ask what they did, I stabbed someone. Why? You can't be put a banky. You see? If maybe that young kid had access to a bank or whatever it is, he couldn't have stabbed someone. You see? Now the bottom line is, all these things, it goes up to powerful people in our societies.
Okay, I think you have made your point. The issue of protection, violence, sexual, gender violence. So you emphasize the government.
Yeah.
Perhaps we need also to look at the role of families. So government may not operate by itself. And then there is also a whole issue of faith-based groups. How do we mentor people within our own docket to do more? So we're looking at which structure has a lot of influence on us. That if I venture there, we'll actually have a stronger impact than just, it's very easy to say government. And we say government is an amorphous thing. You only see the government through what they're doing, but the people really form the government is the people.
Exactly. I said the government because there are some things, like maybe this person is really, let's say now it's me, Amran, who is, selling drugs. I'm not the government.
Yes.
But when maybe someone wants to follow me up, what should I do? I'll go to the relevant offices.
Yes.
Lipa kitu kidogo, story yangu inafanya.
So now, okay, I get your point. And so when we're working, we ask then, if that's the case, who then will have a strong influence on this person not to go behind the scenes? So, yes.
So,
who would that person be?
I think that person.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's first of all the law.
No.
But then the follow-up,
Good, because the government is the law.
Yes, so it's the civil, so this is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
There has to be a way to hold, so because the problem is that the law is being corrupted.
Yeah. So is it that the law is inadequate or adequate?
The law is adequate.
Yes.
But it's not being implemented
or has
properly.
It not been clarified? No.
So the community has, I want to create the whatever of the civic duty of the people to be able to call out when that thing happens. Yes.
And people are afraid to call out. So who is going to speak on them? Who will be their advocate? So
the young people themselves have to organize.
There is a structure they are missing because these young people also fall part of it. So which is that powerful structure, like in Isiolo? Which one would you say, if I went there and I spoke to this group of people, they'll go and speak to this person can do nothing to them?
Okay, I get their point.
Yes.
If I now, let's say now in Isiolo,
yeah,
there is that, like you are now tired, because Maybe I'm in, maybe let's say Nyumba Kumi initiative, or maybe I'm a
Council of
representative
Elders.
of maybe human rights, whatever.
Yes.
Someone comes to me and tells me, you know, Fulani sells drugs to young kids. You see, I go report. It's either I will be eliminated because there are powerful people behind that person.
It's true. Yeah.
Or nikipeleka your story, that person himself who was supposed to help is bought. And then story in.
So which would be that structure? Which would that be structure? You're getting my question, eh? It's not so much difficult, but I'm helping you to think that we have all these mechanisms, but maybe we never think of them. For example, in Isiolo, I have a friend who is very, I know the person is now very senior, had domestic violence, and the husband wanted to kill this lady. So because I was supervising her thesis, what did we do? We understood the clan, where she came from, and then went to the elders. And the elders went and spoke to the husband. And the husband, because now the elders spoke to him, they are now, those kind of things, the law is beyond the law. It's family relations. So they sat together, then this man said, I was very frustrated that she was making more money than I and I'm a man. You know, they can't. So they control. And now this lady is so happy. She's a director of one of the TV stations. She's so happy. Every time we meet, we talk, we say, okay, how did you figure that out? So we are looking at where is this power within the community I can go to and resolve my problem. Not necessarily to bring the government, because the government is the law and can be very intimidating. So people are afraid. So I'm just asking, because the question is protection. When you're talking protection, why didn't it go beyond just what we see? But there's a cultural element, there's a religious element, there's social peer element, there is a personality element, you know. A certain priest, I think, during the clashes of 2007 and 8, he used to go and tell people in the ritual, please come together. When he goes dressed like me, they chase him away. But when you go dressed in the regalia of a bishop or a priest, so okay, how do we protect? What are these mechanisms? So we're going beyond just what we have seen in the first part. First part, you say the constitution is there, everything is there. But the second one now is all of us together. Where do I go? Like now my brother here, Professor. I'm jumping. Professor Dai will normally have cups of coffee once in a while. We just meet and have coffee, so we know one another. You're at home, don't worry, we'll catch up. This is what we're discussing. Okay. So what we want to do is, I was asking, last year when we were doing this research, protection, I was doing research on how the judiciary performed during the last election. And I had the privilege of interviewing all the judges from Maraga down the ladder. But when I reached Lenauda, what he shared was very important. He told me, you cannot share this in any forum. What he said was very important. That, okay, for me I stand for the law, and I'm ready to die for the law. But if I need protection from the Kenya people, who will really protect me? Not be the law, not the government, but the religious people. And he had this reason for that, because they can easily camouflage you and speak to the authority, this person. But when you go to your tribal element, they become striking. If you go to it, it becomes striking. Okay, you want to add more? Yes, please.
Okay, you said the people that should protect us shouldn't be the law, but the
part of it.
Yeah. Let's say you say the religious and the elders and so on and so forth. Now we have cases in Northeastern.
Yes.
Whereby we no longer trust the elders, because like now rape cases have been increasing.
Yes.
You know, someone's daughter is raped as young as 2 years.
Yes.
You take it to the police station.
Yes.
And then the elders go to the police. There's a certain thing called maslaha.
Yes.
Like it is sold there.
Yes.
The elders. The elders go there. They say, no, this case, Rudisha kwetu.
Yes.
Take him back to the elders.
Yes.
And then maybe the father of the girl and the other one wanaitwa pamoja, and they are told, you know, this person is your tribe.
Yes.
He's your clan. Ni kijana mzee fulani fulani.
Yes.
Now why would you want to imprison him? Hiyo story kanyangia hapo. You see? Now you come with maybe there's someone maybe you know, selling drugs, let's say. And then you take it to the wazee. Mwambie unajua mzee fulani fulani is selling drugs for young kids. Anaitwa. And then you call. Mwambie unajua huyu ni mama. she has 10 kids. Unataka
So the
afungue-
point you're emphasizing is
Again, it
that it's
doesn't
very
help.
inadequate. It's
Yeah.
So what you're saying,
Unless those
in view-
elders are
in view of these
capacity
challenges,
built.
which is the best way to go? Because as you say, and I've seen this now, again, cultures are very interesting. The moment you touch on it, then you see very, very interesting. So there are people who will eliminate you anyway. But we are saying, which structure would really support the young people to be able to express themselves without feeling intimidated?
I believe, sir.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to add to that point. Let me just say it.
Just a minute, just a minute.
Okay, I'm feeling stifled. Can I just say it?
Just a minute, just a minute.
Yes.
Let me just, it's an addition to what she's saying, Prof.
Okay, go ahead then, yeah.
I believe that UCSPAK's space in that particular conversation could be the sensitization of this council of elders about the times we are living in, right? What young people think of themselves, their identity, who they are, and how they are interacting with each other, right? With the girl child education and empowerment and all that. And if all these elders have a particular awareness of even this empowerment, this is what it means. So when they're handling these cases, when these cases come to them, because I do believe and I agree with Prof that the elders play a very critical role, because even with our initiative on gender-based violence and FGM, our strategy as government is to actually work with the council of elders in combination with county commissioners and Nyumba Kumi. If these elders are brought to a point of understanding, because our pia ni wale wazee wa kitambo, wengine wamesoma, wengine hawajasoma. So if there is a way to bring them to a certain level of understanding, then you begin to observe when the cases now come to them, so and so's daughter has been raped, how are they responding? And maybe that's what UCSPAK can do, is to engage with them to bring them to a point of understanding. Sorry, Prof, for interfering with your meeting.
So what is coming out as a form of a project could be, you see, the moment you talk of protection, then there's prevention, then partnerships.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying that these parties now, all these points are connected together. And you raise a very important point, because sometimes you have these community groups, yes, and they come out very strongly, like I follow Kezi Isiolo, so I know what exactly you're talking about. They will be eliminated for sure, and they do. But then on the other hand, if the community is together, it's very difficult to go that far. So how can we then engage the issues of child protection or youth protection with the local community? So there has to be a mechanism. So what we're beginning to see is building awareness where the elders are involved, the government is involved, faith-based groups, the interest groups, you know, there are very many interest groups in this particular area. Like now all of us here are interest groups. Can we then come up with a program of advocacy? Advocacy is the key word I was looking for, advocacy. And when you talk about advocacy, you're cutting across the board. So now, if you go to Isiolo and say, we're having a forum to understand how young people can stop being involved in drug abuse. So where do you start? All the stakeholders will be involved. Then you can invite all the stakeholders also involved, like the Minister of Education, they involve the CUE, you know. So when they come together and they're discussing, people listen. What happens beyond that is usually now the challenge of the law. That's what I wanted to help you just bring out. That you're making a very fundamental point. And now we're also building in form of a project. How do we develop a project at least? So elders, government, FBOs, interest groups all coming together. And then culturally, there are some situations where men and women cannot interact. So which is the avenue? Which is the right avenue? That's the other point. Okay.
Or maybe,
yes.
Maybe we should be having frequent counseling from maybe primary.
Yes.
Not like maybe UCSPAK today comes, and then you just talk to the students and something, and then disappear.
Yes.
Maybe if you can do, maybe if possible, like monthly counseling, talking to the young kids from when they are in primary, high school, university, telling them that maybe what may, they shouldn't engage into drugs. Right. They shouldn't be told to do this and this, intimidated by anyone. Maybe it could help.
So again, brings us back to the other point we had earlier of mentorship.
Yeah.
When you talk about mentorship program, what contains this syllabus? That when I'm mentoring somebody, it's not just about going for a cup of tea, eating together, no, but it's about values, principles that make you become a good citizen, that help you to understand your boundaries in life when you start making decisions that help you to grow. That, as the chairman said, maybe small councils from the lower level going upward, just like what they're doing with the, you mentioned something there that was very important.
Lydia.
Yes. So she said that putting together all this, then how do they build up to responsible citizenship that can look for employment? So that when we get out of here, we can say, oh, today we have come up with 10 projects that can help us move forward. And when we are forging forward, we're going to collaborate. Squeezing out the issue of hawkers. Okay, there are hawkers who are kids, and I really feel bad. How do we protect them? They're not held, that we don't become vulnerable to pests in the city of Nairobi. Yeah. So this part we're looking at protection, prevention, partnerships. That's how the four things are going together. And I think just feel free if you say, this is how we protect, this is how we prevent, partner, so that we can see how they fit in together. And I was emphasizing your point, and I think how we understand that when we are looking at an issue, we are looking at how it has started, where it is, and how we get out of it, so that at the end we have some resolutions. So at this juncture, when you have them say, please welcome.
So, Prof, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I know you came a bit late, but so is the meeting over?
No, just introduce him.
I'm road locked.
Okay.
Yeah, just introduce him so that I think everybody knows him, but you can do the honors.
Yes, so thank you so much. We have now Prof, I think just the same way Dr. said, is a common figure in this country, and I know you have been able to really shape the education and many other sectors of this country. Professor Chacha is our chairman.
In illusion.
He will clarify. Let me invite you to kindly
say hello.
Yes, to say hello.
Okay. Can I say hello and then perhaps unfortunately, because I'm late, make two statements so that in my apologies I also say I came, I saw, I participated. My name is Chacha Nyagot Chacha. I currently serve as the chairman of the Commission for University Education. I have served in many other organizations and entities. I have been engaged with the youth, I think perhaps throughout my life, first as a young man myself, and participating in a number of other activities of the youth. And then the institutions I have served actually as a leader of university campus colleges. I have served as a leader of Higher Education Loans Board, CEO. I have served for 10 years the Inter-University Council for East Africa as the executive secretary. And all these years I have been thinking about the youth. I've been thinking about the challenges that the youth face. Sometimes the definition of who is a youth becomes very complicated because when you find some politicians, including some of you who are here, at what point do you mutate from being a youthful leader, the leader of the youth, to a leader of everybody? Or does a leader of the youth also serve other people? And how do you ensure that when you are focusing on the general perspective of human life from early childhood all the way to the elders. As a youth, how do you ensure that at that time you are still serving the interests of the youth? Can we, for example, say that the youth have some unique interests and unique challenges which require some specific focus by the youth leadership and by people who are also concerned about it? I have just come in the middle of your discussion. I don't know in terms of timeline where you are, whether you are about to finish or you are.
So the first one took a lot of time.
Yes.
But then the second one, we want to look at protection, prevention, partnerships.
Okay, so this is where you want to discuss.
Yes.
Then you wind it up.
Wind it up, yeah.
Okay, so let me make my statement, and I think I can allow you to continue with the program the way it was arranged. I think the issue here about peace, because this is Peace Week, and you ask yourself, how come we talk about peace everywhere, every day, and we are not peaceful? We don't live in peaceful neighborhoods, we don't live in peaceful communities, we don't live in peaceful countries. There are so many things which happen which undermine peace, including the violence that we witness in families, among spouses or between spouses, the violence which are meted against children of all ages, etc., etc. And then later on, when you combine this with the politicians, you find that every day, that as I speak now, there are several politicians who are making life so difficult and insecure. So there is no security and there is no peace. Then you ask yourself, if without peace we cannot have a normal life, what should we do to ensure that there is peace? But you know, when you think about this challenge of insecurity, peace, the youth, children, women, you can realize that some places in the world, and a good example is the Middle East, places in the world where they have never known peace. If you read the Quran or you read the Bible, you find that the communities around that area were continuously and endlessly engaged in wars and battles. They are still doing that. And people who are born in Palestine, for example, you were born knowing that your great-great-grandfather died or was killed, and then your grandfather was killed, your grandmother was jailed, and your father is not even at home, he's either in the battlefront or already killed. But you are there. You must live. And I think when you come down to reality, you'll find that while we think that is a very serious problem, we are also surrounded by the same problem. If you look back from the time we were colonized up until now, the struggle is still the same. And then the basic things were we have three enemies. Ujinga, umaskini na maradhi. They are still there. And these are instigators of how it is very difficult for you to even organize yourselves. Because when you don't have good health, you are susceptible to a lot of other challenges. And when you also don't have enough education, or good purposeful education, one which orients you towards some engagement that can earn you a livelihood, you become a very bitter person. So the youth, when I travel, I have just traveled from 5 o'clock when I left my home. I have covered about 400 and something kilometers to reach here today. But I was seeing the way the youth all over that route, right from the early morning hours, are completely uncomfortable. Whatever they are doing, they are aching their lives through all means possible, some of which are not very bad. Then we have had, as a country, been thinking about this problem for many years. Those who fought for independence thought about it. There came generations of politicians now. If we were going to say we are in phases, I think this is it the 11th Parliament? 11th. Yeah. So the 11th Parliament, it means times 5 for over 50 years, we have been just doing nothing to get ourselves out of these problems. We have had organs like Mukum. We have tried several arrangements through the Constitution. I was reading the version of the old Kenyan Constitution, which we transmuted into the 2010 Constitution. Actually, there was nothing wrong with that Constitution. The problem we have in this country is implementation and our resolve. Our resolve as a community to live by the Constitution. So right now, people are also saying, oh, this one we have is also bad. And so they are going to change it, perhaps to another, hybrid. Then we will say later on what was wrong with this one in 2010. It's just implementation. All these challenges, including the wars we're having now about Maraga declaring, advising President Uhuru to dissolve Parliament, the consequences of our inability to live by the word of law. Whatever is provided to guide our lives, we have failed and ignored it. If you go to the law, I mean to the pronouncements which the parliaments have made, when they were forming, for example, the Bakumi entity, we thought they have created a panacea of how to solve problems of the villagers, problems of neighborhoods, problems of people who are fighting among themselves because of just 2 feet of land. People die because of 1 foot of land. You come, your neighbor has just moved perhaps the fence 1 foot. You just take a punk and kill him. Then, of course, the rest is history. You are either jailed or you drive your way, and that person is found guilty posthumously because he's already dead. So if he's the one who is found guilty, then it means you live there with the family trying to avenge the death of their loved ones. We have tried even the county government, but we miss it because we don't know right now. I was talking to some county officials 3 days ago in my village. Where does your role start and end for the national leadership to take over? Because there is a DO, and then there is a sub-county union. All these people. So what do? They don't. Instead they steal ethics. And in order for us to deal with the challenges which are facing the youth, we must start talking about morality. We must start talking about ethical behavior, because the youth, as we speak now, are under siege. Their life has become so difficult. They are ensnared. They are actually in a cage where the people who guide them have no good purpose for them. They are also interested in perhaps taking advantage of the youth. And in Kenya, in order for you to talk about all these things, you get compromised. We sit here, we have this organization which is supposed to cut across communities. But people get out of this place, even having discussed together with this gentleman, doctor here and the rest here, to tribalism. Go back to your ethnic enclaves. So then you find that you are peaceful, or you feel happy when you are protected by your clan, people, by your tribe. Then later on, every group you make is because we are all insecure without them. We think that we are secure when we have them, but they're the ones who also mess us up. So you need to worry about that. You need to worry about the development of culture. From where we came, pre-colonial, colonial, independent years earlier, now where we are we still the same? Can we use our cultural background to say we must return our society to peaceful coexistence and to meaningful engagement of the youth, so that at the end of the day we can count on the youth. You know, the youth of this country and perhaps countries in our continent now, their lives are not assured. And whatever they do, we tell them go to school, get degrees. To get a degree, to get a first class honors, there is no job, there is no guaranteed job. So I think this is also tied with how we intend to galvanize the youth in order for them to take over the challenges and solve them. I have been meeting young people, graduates with degrees, carrying pangas in estates, trying to clean up the neighborhoods. After they finish the work, I think they get some little allowance, which they use to buy airtime, and they start perhaps sending vulgar messages and sometimes to people, and then tomorrow life starts the same circle. So where have we messed ourselves up? I think these are the challenges of this group. So we need to be discussing what are the solutions that can be created in order for us, if we are really thoughtful about, in carving down, if we are really thoughtful about carving down, what do we want those people to do? Physically, they are cutting the grass. You can see that perhaps the rats and snakes around, now they have run away. But is that the purpose of this engagement? And we turn it around and use it to make these people formulate a formidable organization of togetherness, of working towards ensuring that their future is secured. And their future cannot be secured unless also the leadership, political, religious, educational leadership is engaged in understanding, first of all, the challenges which we are facing now with the youth, and discussing the solutions and the pathways of how to unravel ourselves and disengage from these challenges and live a life which is purposeful. So we need also to worry about the fact that I was talking to one radio, I think it was BBC or whatever, said people in democracy, you make 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. So it means actually you'll make 1 step backward. And each time you try to say, oh, we are democratizing, we are doing nice things, you find you're not moving. And then this is cutting across, and I was going to mention something about cross-border challenges in the East African region. Because of the communities which live with the border lines, grouping mind, the influence sometimes we may have from the Kenyan side, we may have said, oh, we have found a solution to how we can solve this problem. But you find that 3/4 of the people you are talking to, after you finish the meeting, they cross to the market on the other side of the country, and how their influence on the other side will again change completely the resolve they made or the resolutions they made when you met them. So we need to go back and think about what did we mean when we said we are reenacting the East African community afresh in 1999. The East African community now is having so many challenges. Is it on course in terms of how to address the youth? Because they also in the treaty of the East African community addressed a lot of things about the youth, about education, about how things will be organized in such a way that we can, as a community now of 6 countries, South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi. Congo was coming in, Somalia was trying to say if we solve our problems internally here, we will also come in. We thought that will help us create job opportunities for the youth, create education opportunities for the youth, and move forward. So you need to worry and say, can we succeed in isolation? Can we succeed in isolation? Maybe we can't, and therefore, since we can't succeed in isolation, we need to ask ourselves, how do you ensure that the youth who are growing up under our mentorship are able to differentiate between nationalism, which is based on ethnicity, and the nationalism stroke patriotism, which is based on a polity. By polity, I mean, for example, a country called Kenya. You find when there is a Kenyan police arresting a youth from Somalia who has crossed and is living in Mandela with his aunt or his cousin. Those people will understand that this person has committed a crime against the Kenyan as per the Kenyan code, but they will not understand why their cousin should be arrested. So I think in terms of how we galvanize the youth and how we mobilize our efforts, we need to bring all these factors together so that we can say, how do you create a formidable group called the youth in a country called Kenya, which has porous borderlines, etc., etc. And how do you ensure that you embed patriotism and nationalism, or feeling that we are Kenyan community, or we are Kenyan citizenry, and we are determined to engage and move. The last point I want to mention before I get back to, I leave you to continue, is this question of advocacy. Advocacy must have a structure, and that structure must engage all the stakeholders, right from the subject that you are discussing in trying to mobilize people to engage in a manner that addresses all these issues which we are talking about. And then you need to say, in this communities of ours, we have forgotten that there were cultural belief systems, and that there were basic tenets of morality which were given to people from early childhood, so that you know how to separate bad behavior from good behavior, which is acceptable to the community. Then there are religions. So some Africans say, okay, before Islam, before Christianity and all these other things, we say, they also used to have their own faithful belief systems which they used to use. Now we have Christianity, we have Islam. I don't know how young people with this, we used to use 844 a lot, but these days this is not 844. We are saying the IT culture. Young people who are living now, even when they're in the church as Christians, do they really know what a Christian is supposed to do? And how can we go back as we engage the youth through our advocacy, bring to bear the issue of commitment to religious practice, whatever religion it will be? Because all religions are very good. It's only bad people who misuse religions to commit bad things. So we need to bring up a community that knows exactly that these religions and the religious communities were not meant to kill. They were not meant to steal. They were not meant to be engaged fully in corruption or corrupted activities. So if you are able to address this, we will be very happy. And lastly, I wanted to talk about neighborhoods. traditionally, when we were growing up, some of us who are older, the neighbor used to be the neighbor's child. So if you found a neighbor's child going astray, you actually had the right to discipline that child. And then you would, of course, later agree with the child. If you never repeat, you will not tell the parents. If you find him a second time, the parents will know, and the parents were more fierce than even the neighbor. So you better be punished by a neighbor for your transgress than waiting until your father or your mother punishes you. Now, can we start going back, reading culture, trying to think about how the communities ensure their survival? Because without that arrangement of taking care of your neighbor's child, I think some communities would have disappeared from the world. Because maybe some children would be burning houses, also, a lot of homesteads would be burned, because that time was also, most of them were grass thatched or makuti thatched, makuti ya minazi. So my coming here was through your SOS call. I'm happy that I have arrived, and I'm happy that I've been able to speak for a few minutes. I think that is all I wanted to speak. And then wish you all the best in terms of your deliberations, if you want to continue deliberating. And then if you want me to remain briefly, you can tell me to do so.
Please remain up to whatever time you can.
Okay.
But we really want to appreciate you. You're an elder. And all the things you said are true. You're the one who founded HELP. You're the one who started university, chairman of University Commission. So we're very, very proud of you. And I always gain a lot from you. So what you have really touched, and this is why the first part of our meeting, we took a lot of time with the protection, participation. Because once you understand participation, then it's very easy to engage in protection, prevention, partnerships. And if you listen to Professor very well, what he has really shared is, for example, the whole issue here of protection. So you're looking at the law, the community, how the government can be involved. Prevention, how cultures can help us generate ethical values in society. So we need to engage with our cultures, wherever the youth are. And then the whole issue of the national, the county, and the local. How do we engage in that? And the other one is about partnerships. Why partnerships are so important? Because with the partnerships, we are already partners here actually. So we are not looking for other partnerships. We are here. But then when we are building partnerships, which partnerships add value to what we do? So Professor is helping us to understand, to cultivate that space. And then when we're looking at these partnerships, we need to engage with our stakeholders. So who are these stakeholders? So that was a very interesting point that Professor raised. The spirit of nationalism, protectionism, and then advocacy. And the last one was neighborhoods. So when I look at what Professor said, I actually touched on protection, prevention, partnerships. So we have about 20 minutes to engage ourselves or disengage. So I think just feel free to say what you need to say around protection, prevention, partnership, disengagement. That's where we are. Yes, please go ahead.
I had somewhat, I don't know what point, how it can be framed as a project or anything.
Okay.
But I believe our society has not paid a lot of attention to the issue of aptitudes of conflict management and communication. Mm-hmm. So we grow up, there are people who have grown up, even we, I think even our generation, tulichapwa sana by our parents were also beaten up a lot by their parents, as a legitimate either mode of expression or conflict resolution, as a conflict resolution way. So when you see that escalation of GBV and all these violences, sometimes it's just how we communicate with each other.
Yes.
And we've neglected that entire, that soft skill of how to communicate and do conflict management. So, for instance, now with the COVID-19, you find now the husband and the wife, the children, all of you are in the house. Nobody has skills of de-escalation. Nobody has a mediation, understands, even how to mediate. Sometimes even when the parents or whoever else is called in, they don't know how to mediate. Maybe they take sides, escalate the matter, it becomes even worse. The parent, maybe the mother doesn't know how to help the children from being beaten by the father because she doesn't know how to de-escalate it. So it's just a complete quagmire. And so I feel like that could be a unique approach to this conflict management. So how do we protect people from violence, from each other? Just giving people the skills and even the knowledge of what violence is. Because you can endure some form of violence, maybe it's not physical, but you endure it for so long before you even know that it has been violence against you, before you realize you have depression or you have suicide or you have some escalation of some sort. So I don't know whether that is something that can be done at a societal level. It can be done as a case study to see and monitor a particular group of people over a particular period of time. Maybe the survivors or the victims, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, and it's one of these projects that maybe also go just beyond this initiative. Yeah? For example, the moment you bring in now domestic violence because of COVID, then we'll be asking the question, why is it that there's domestic violence? I was writing a paper for the UN and I was looking at domestic violence in Europe, especially England. Just during this COVID period, about 110 women have been murdered using the kitchen knife. So the question was, why did the man take a knife to stab the wife in the kitchen? So the question now psychologists say, when men suffer from low esteem, they're very dangerous. So he wants to provide for the home, he's the one who's supposed to think for their family, and then he's not able to provide. Then you are asking, oh, we don't have food today. So how do we deal with that? It's a very serious issue. So it's even beyond it. But how can UCSPAK and the partners start as a discussion like that? For example, now you brought it up and say, oh, this is an area that we need to engage in. When men suffer from low esteem, they are worse than a tiger. Why is that the case? Is it the way they are created? Is it the way they are? And this is what is coming out in Europe. Here we have bottled up and we just keep it quiet, but it's also happening. So that's an interesting study. So it's about protection, prevention, and building partnerships. That is what is coming out. Yes.
I can add on what she's saying. As of prevention, it's also good to have them get education. You see, like me nikienda ushago, if there is a fight, the way I will fight and somebody mwenye hajaenda shule, it will be totally different. I'll knock you down. The other issue is about democracy for all. You see, when most of the youths feel that they are so suppressed in terms of the political system, the only way they can show their anger is through issues of like now causing violence and what. But the moment everything is in order, they will definitely not have conflict or even violence. Another thing is having proper systems. Meaning that you see most of the youth say, no, my expectation at the end of this is ABCD. So there is a very proper system, everything is clear, they will be able to catch themselves. Then another thing, in terms of those who are propagating these violences, you can have a punishment that if it's church who is spearheading, these are the consequences. And a good example is Sudi. Sudi himself spoke, but those who were with bangas and rungus, the whole of them vijana. When you look at that video, you cannot even see a whole mzee with a banga. But all of them were youths. So the consequences is, if you are a politician, and Jubilee, like for example, has a code of conduct. How is that code of conduct being implemented? So it also goes down the line where there are policies, we might do a lot of documentations and paperwork, but nothing is also being done. Last but not least is the role of media. Media plays a critical role in all of this, because now there is from WhatsApp to main media to even other informal ways. So we really need to see how we can leverage on this to have a balance, so that through partnership we are able to foster the issue of peace and even knowledge.
This point should not disappear. He said education can help us understand how to deal with violence, which is true. And also, different cultures have a different way of dealing with violence. Like if you go to Meru and someone tells you that I'm going to cut you, they say, okay, cut me, then cut you. And the cultures, you tell them, cut you, they say, but my culture cannot even cut, a woman cannot cut a woman, you know. Others they say, I cannot even fight with a woman, you know. So they walk away. But somebody could easily incite you and say, oh, no. So this is part of the education we are talking about, that we are able to get deeper to understanding where we are without necessarily creating new chaos. Okay, that's what you're emphasizing. Yeah. Okay, very nice. Go ahead.
Okay. Just to add on what he pointed out, pertaining an inclusive environment.
Yes.
We need to really keep pushing on that angle, so that there is an enabling environment for young people to be actively involved in governance and all the other issues, even at the community level. Yes. Because the fact that many young people feel hopeless, there is a high spirit of hopelessness in this country. And the only way we can get rid of that is to ensure that our positions are also involved. There is nothing for us without us. And the moment that slogan is still the order of the day for young people, then we will not go far with peace. Yes, another thing, we need to have a multi-sectoral approach. See, the way you had highlighted the role of the church, the role of community-based organizations, and the role of the government, and also the role of elders and parents. So if we can come up with a multi-sectoral approach towards addressing such issues at the community level, then that's the best way forward to prevent and also to strengthen, in the spirit of strengthening partnerships for multiplying the success. Yeah.
That's a good one. As again, 3 points have come out here. Creating an enabling environment where the youth really know who they are and where they are, whom they're dealing with.
Yes.
And then the whole issue about conflict mechanism, the multi-sectoral approach. Of course, I'm also happy that you use enabling environment rather than empowerment. The two are so different. The one who empowers you, yes, so different, and everybody uses that language, because if I empower means I'm giving you power, and I can also take it away from you. So this thing of handouts, what is actually, that's what it is. But creating an enabling environment is where you open somebody to a million possibilities, opportunities, and then people now can select. Actually, this is my speech at the UN this evening. We're going to talk about projects, how young people can participate in projects at the UN level. But then I'm going also to caution them by saying that please let us now reorganize our language and vocabulary. It's very important. Conflict theory is very important. This one is a whole study that needs to have even a proper workshop. And this is something I really value very much. When people ask me to go and teach security and sustainable peace, even one class I was invited, but I taught it in 1 hour, and the semester was finished. Why? Because you mustn't have the theory. The theory of conflict is very simple. It's needs. Whose needs? Now you fill the gap. Interests. Whose interests? Fill the gap. Resources. What resources? Maybe there is money here. If I go to UCSPAK, they'll be paying me a check every day, so I create chaos for church and joy. You know? Resources. Then the issue of power. So needs, interests, resources, power. then there's conflict. Then when there's conflict, what do you do now? Mitigation. Why didn't you stop it before reaching mitigation then? So mitigation is usually the filter. Mitigation is only the arrows pointing back. Let's crush this power, let's crush resources, let's crush interests, let's crush needs. Then we think of all of us rather than one person. So I just wanted to emphasize that, but this point doesn't go out. So when we are writing a project, we know exactly what we are writing about. Madam, please go ahead.
Okay, I just want to add on what my colleagues have said. Personally, I believe prevention, it starts with the family itself, the upbringing, how you bring up your children. As you said, in your generations, children were disciplined by the society. If a kid does something wrong, jirani anamchapa. But now in our generation, try to touch someone's daughter or son, utakipata.
Yes.
Okay. Again, the parents of this generation have become so much into, making money that they forget about their parents. A kid is 2-year-old, taken to a school, anapelekwa kwa shule ama anachiwa nani? House help. Or is taken to a boarding school. We don't even know how this kid is growing. Maybe the kid is being bullied in school, creating that hatred in him. By the time he's done with class 8 or form 4, the child becomes violent. You see? Now parents are not being part of their children. Again, comes back to the society itself. There is this culture, like now domestic violence, whereby you said men feel, start getting having low self-esteem because they cannot provide. The society should teach their children that in a marriage or any partnership, there should be that, both genders should contribute.
Yes.
Like for instance, in Islam, we are taught that it's a man who is supposed to provide. But now, since the things are changing and the generations, are changing, we should be told that it is okay for a woman to provide without her demeaning her husband or her partner. And it is okay for a man, to be unable to provide without him feeling like he's useless or something. And to what we are going to, it is just fine. Just normalize it. Both parties being, one when doing something. Again, comes back into the elders. The elders should maybe stop this thing of mtuwetu mentality. When something happens, maybe a man and wife fight, maybe the guy stabs the wife.
Yes.
Mwanamke anaambiwa, you are a woman. Unafaa kuvumilia hii maneno. You see, ama you're told, this guy is from the tribe, hii story, wachana nayo tu. Now mtu anajua tu at the end of the day, he will be supported. The next time, msichana atapigwa na she will end up in coffin ama ataenda akiwa amekufa. So basically all these things trickle down to the family upbringing and the elders and
Very important point, and we don't want to lose this, the psychology of growth. Children are growing up, and they say, I think it's with the age of 1 and 2 is very important. Then 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when the kid reaches 8, they will start telling, Mommy, I don't want you to bathe me. But you see, they've grown up being bathed by the house girl or whatever. So how do you deal with that? So the growth is only manifested in the age of 20 to 30. That's when now you see how the child grow up, how violent they are, how angry they are. You tell them to do something and they're knocking their legs and throwing their backs down and they're very angry. Then you ask yourself, oh, maybe this kid is angry emotionally. And when you go deeper inside, this kid is very angry. And these are the kids who look for outplays outside. So there's a psychology of growth. And then, of course, both the genders. That's a big one now. That's a cultural issue. And that's something now we can call on the Ministry of Education to help us. That all schools in Kenya need to understand that men and women can provide for the family. But the imbalance is also very huge, that also maybe the women need to be educated on. Earning 40,000 and the woman is earning 800,000. So who should be the breadwinner of the home? And so there's a big issue, big debate now in Kenya, I think maybe for another time, where now this man cannot match the money. And just last week a friend of mine's wife lost that kind of a job. Now they have come back to 40,000. Now the big issue is the tension in the family. So how do we deal with these issues? This is one of the projects that we need to look at with maybe psychologists to help us really gel together this. And one person I really found is an expert in this is Selva. Both of us know Selva. Selva Sahaya. So it's a kind of a workshop, leaders workshop. This one is beyond just putting a project together. Okay, we are trying to wind up as we are moving forward. Any other point? Would you like to speak?
You can start.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Probably just to say, I think it's an interesting engagement for me. One of the things that I am trying to push for, and one that I have done is I'm pushing for a bill, a motion that I call that establishes an unemployment insurance fund.
Okay.
So my biggest motivation is the rate of job losses within this period of COVID. So post-COVID, what solutions are we providing? I know there's I think the National Employment Authority and all those other things, but what if we had an unemployment insurance fund, a fund which people willfully contribute, and then when you lose out on a job, you're able to be facilitated for like 6 months. So yesterday there was a news clip that was running, I think on Citizen or KTN, that showed the amount of people that have actually withdrawn their NSSF contributions. And in April alone, there was 308 million that was withdrawn from NSSF. People going to claim their benefits because they have lost employment and they are trying to make a living and pay their bills within the city of Nairobi. So I am proposing that there is an establishment of an insurance fund that shall be called a national an unemployment insurance fund that will then take care of the social challenges and economic challenges when someone loses out on employment. And it can be treated like NSSF and other form of contribution. And I think that is something that I am passionate to really look at the outcome of that, and that's a practical solution that can then also be employed by the national government and and maybe the county may not have the facilities to implement. But my interest here is just to begin a conversation that we can actually have an unemployment insurance fund. We have looked at the youth fund and the Biashara funds, but then when someone loses out, when someone is employed, very few people actually go to look for youth funds and others. But when they lose out on a job, they will need some form of assistance to actually survive. So that is the kind of space that I'm trying to.
It's a good bill, and I would encourage you to go ahead and look at models like, for example, UK has put aside 800 million pounds to do the same. USA is about 3 trillion. Yeah. They're doing that, so everybody gets something like $400 per week or something like per month. So it's a good bill, and that is the question we have been asking our president. Many livelihoods have been lost because of this COVID. What do we do? Okay, that's fine. So we have 2 minutes. So somebody.
I wanted to put some emphasis to her point on the role of parents as primary educators.
Yes, please.
I've had a chance to consult for the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops.
KCCB.
Yes, KCCB. I'm a staunch Catholic. And one thing that KCCB has really been emphasizing is the role of parents as primary educators.
Yes.
Right now we have a child protection policy. We've developed a child protection policy which is supposed to be adopted in every Catholic school. So that child protection policy provides for child protection officers in every school, and it also provides for a program, a regular program that seeks to sensitize parents on the rights of the children and the role of parents in protecting the children from abuse. So, and it also sensitizes teachers and volunteers and all other stakeholders within the school community. So, I think if we could adopt that in all the religious-based education institutions, Yeah, it could be a very nice approach towards protecting children in education institutions. And then also, as UCSPAK, you could take that up to engage the religious-based institutions, and also even the other. You can buy from maybe what we are doing in the Catholic education, and replicate it in the other education institutions, which is very much good, because we are putting parents as the main educators. When we do admission in Catholic Church, you don't admit only a pupil. There are some schools who never even care. You can have a pupil from pre-primary up to class 8, and some teachers don't even know who the parent of that child is. But for Catholic education institution, they admit the parent, they take the parents through a program on child protection, and they ensure that there is proper monitoring systems and reporting systems for children who have been abused in schools.
Okay. So what you are saying is that can there be a faith-based approach in these partnerships?
Yes.
That's what we are saying.
Yes.
And when you do the partnerships, because different faiths have different mechanisms, which are the best practices and help us move together. So we look for the best practices.
Sure.
So we have 30 seconds. If you're planning to say something, please say.
I am, because I think there's a point here we've not really maybe expressed ourselves on the issue of armed conflict.
Yes.
And on this one, my thought has always been based, borrowed on the UN Charter, and why the UN was formed, to stop another world war. Because when people arm themselves, there's only hell to pay. So the solution was already offered, but we've never really seen it as how we can localize that UN Charter. So how can we do this at the community level? Because most of our strategies are aimed at preventing conflict, but conflict will happen, certainly. So what the UN Charter did is to anticipate that when conflict happens, what are the prescribed methodologies for how to go about it. In Kenya, we have we have either no conflict or you're in jail. But in between here, we have no law that prescribes the steps that can be taken to resolve a conflict. To say that, okay, if you have a quarrel with so and so, this is what you are required to do. You will take this step. If that step doesn't work, you will take this other step. If that step doesn't work, you will take this step until the conflict is resolved. And you are not allowed to arm yourself. So I kind of feel like, can we do that? And then also at the UN level, the international scene, there's a lot of awareness of when a conflict emerges. The world pays attention. Mediators are sent. They are mobilized from everywhere. They're sent there. Go talk to this president, the other one, try and mediate. Can we also co-opt that at the community level and say, do we have mediators? Do we have people in, say, Langata Estate or I don't know, Kaspul village or where, who are trained mediators, people who know, who can be called upon when something spikes? Because it's going to happen. Conflict is going to happen. So I felt like...
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
And I just ignored it because it has evolved by itself.
Okay.
We talked about family, we have talked, even the last point is disengagement for integration. If there's domestic violence, that's already a breach of security in the family. How do we go about it? Do we take this course? Where do we... So actually we have touched on it. I need to evolve by itself. But then when you're talking of young people have been in terror groups, that's where maybe you say we haven't reached there. We haven't touched on it, but we touched a little bit on it. Because we're looking at all these things we have discussed. Where is the integration so that we make sure this person, the youth, is able to fit in society and understand the environment to contribute to national development? That's what we are saying. So which are the best mechanisms? For example, if you talk to Mwai Kennedy, he's researching on the youth who have been engaged in terror groups in Somalia, Yemen, yes. When they come back to Kenya, should the Kenya police put them in a corner somewhere and shoot them? or they should be rehabilitated and reintegrated back to society. What about when people come from prisons, they go back to the village? Should they be confined somewhere to be given new skills on how to engage in society, or they just be let loose? And some prisoners will say, I better go back to prison than being outside. So this disengagement and then reintegration is a very important area. But somehow, I didn't want to bring in violence inside. Yes, please.
I think the point is calling upon ourselves and those who are engaged in this business. Think about, even when we say we have created a methodology or an organization or a system that can help resolve those conflicts. How do people engaged in the conflicts, including with access those places or those people, if it is a group of people? Because if I am at war with my neighbor here, he can go to police and record a police statement. There is an OB of occurrence book where they record. The police can even drive or come and arrest me. But we are not using that route ourselves as we talk about several methodologies of how to minimize conflicts. And if our initiative is to create groups or to create entities that can support the element of peace, living in secure neighborhoods, then if there are such organizations, including some religious organizations, of course, have groups which meet in the church compound and whatever. But how do we make sure that when I have a conflict with this person, I'm a villager in Chwele or wherever, and that I know that within the vicinity of Chwele, I can access such an organized system where my matter can be addressed, and the two of us brought together either to be counseled or to be supported in how to resolve the problems, or to be warned and shown the best way to solve the problem. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, because of time, I just want to stop here and hand over to the chair of UCSPAK to conclude the session. But I found it very interesting, and I hope we can continue engaging. And for me, I'm always available if you ask me to. This is what I do. And then on Saturdays, I have seminars with our PhD students, and we engage ourselves for 3 hours. This is what I do all the time. So I love doing it. So I really thank you, UCSPAK, for inviting me here today. And I thank our elder. We still have our cup of coffee to have.
Yeah. Several cups.
We have missed it because of the COVID. We are not. We used to meet every Friday. So I hand over to you.
Thank you so much for the time. One, before maybe we can conclude, Professor here is the chair, is the board chair, and I lead the secretariat, the executive director. There is that rearrangement that we did where now UCSPAK has a board of trustees, which Prof is the chair. I lead the secretariat, and I'm also the secretary of the board of trustees. But maybe before we proceed, because the chair came in a bit late, and he doesn't know who is in the house, I feel like it would be prudent to just briefly say your name and the organization that you come from, and maybe the position that you start with. Maybe I can begin from, yes, let me begin from Ghana. Yes.
Yeah, my name is Joel. I lead the programs and operations for universities and colleges in the Peace Association of Kenya.
Okay, my name is Amri Mwendere, Secretary General, Gospel Society of Kenya, and I'm a member of UCSPAK.
My name is Faith Nora Lukosi. I'm a member of the National Youth Council, and I also consult for the National Youth Council on issues of policy and advocacy.
Thank you.
I'm Ivan Koech, representing Political Parties Liaison Committee, the youth program. by professions, because naona kuna professor, I'm a land surveyor. I also serve as a chair for young surveyors at the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya. So ukiwa na shida ya shamba na niona kando.
Iko nyingi. He's also a secretary general of a political party.
Yeah, I do run a political party, and I also work for Peter Kenneth. So I have so many things.
You're a gig work. My name is Lydia Bathia. I work in the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs as an advisor to the minister. I must say, your passion and clarity on youth, and it's very impressive to see an advocate at your level, of experience. I think all of us, it's very surprising and also very encouraging. Yeah. So we feel like you get it. You're the right chair for UCSPAK. Yeah.
I'm Imo Achila. We actually met in 2018. I know you can hardly remember. But I'm currently working at National Youth Council in the Communications Department. We met when I was working at Management University of Africa, when you chaired our graduation, when you were the guest of honor. Yes, in 2018. Yes.
You were graduating that time?
I was working there. And he was when Dr. Leting was the Vice Chancellor. Yes.
Mbugo Kabira is my name. I work with the County Assembly of Nairobi. I am an MCA, but I have a professional life. Yeah, I think your reputation precedes you. When I used to be in KU, people used to say there's a guy who used to be called Chacha, who used to give them money. Now at least I get to meet the person who used to give them money. It's a great honor. I am still a student at KU. I am doing my second master's degree in biotechnology.
Okay.
Yeah.
In?
Biotechnology.
But being told he's a professional in politics.
No, politics is life. I think politics is meant for few people. And that's where we miss the point. We think what politicians deal with are things of everyday life, but people think that politicians are different people, especially in Kenya. Because most of you are also not very good in terms of they have put their fingers in the deal. Most of the time we are dealing with, like today I stopped in Narok very abruptly because I think I felt I needed a cup of coffee, and then I found an MCA from Migori driving so fast, he was parking Papa. I said, hey, wait a minute, what's wrong with him? He said, I have been summoned to the DCI. I said, drive slowly, you'll not even reach. With this speed, you'll not reach.
Someone.
So I hope you are not being summoned also. I'm actually, part of my life has always been political. Yeah, I used to be in the student government when we were young in the 70s. But I also do a lot of politicking and a lot of political things. So I cherish politics, but I think we have messed it up. You understand? One, every politician believes that it is only his or her party that is important. So they have failed to appreciate what democracy means. Because if we only focus on one party, then we can't be democratic. We automatically give way to the leadership to become dictatorial, because then they'll be ordering us to think it's like all, and if you don't think it's like you're beaten up. So I wish you well. I wish everybody here well. Marim, you know that just like that film said, we have many miles to go and promises to keep before we sleep. On our part, we have so many issues that we need to engage and continue, including the Tangazo issue. And for all of you, see, the inspiration I get by seeing you in this meeting and several other places I have met some of you, is that the future is secure. We only need to continue engaging in the discourse. Because I think it's very easy to give up. And the reason why people give up is because they think they have no power to change anything. That they leave things drifting towards chaos. And by the time they realize that they could have stopped this chaos from happening, time would have already gone, and very many lives sometimes would have been compromised or messed up, if not lost. So we feel happy when we meet him, and I'm sorry that I should have spoken at the beginning, but I came midway, you gave me time, I made my remarks. I'm looking forward to the full engagement of our board as well as yourselves on matters of this nature and how we can bring it out. I think advocacy means also that you must publicize. So there must be advocacy and publicity. When you communication, somebody will say communication. When you're talking about things that need to be done to secure the space for the youth, in terms of peace, security, and even development, then we need also, whenever we engage in our discourse, we need to publicize and communicate it out to everybody in this country and beyond, to know that we exist. And the reason why we exist is because we are concerned about the youth and would like to create opportunities for youth to discuss their problems, but at the same time, we should not end at just discussing, which is what everybody does. All these parliaments, we are on 11th. Tangia mwanzo ni kuzungumza. If you call people to account, when I worked in Kampala, I used to tell the vice chancellors I was responsible for all vice chancellors in these 6 countries. And most of them will resolve, they don't go to implement. But the resolution had said each university should do ABC. We come back 3 months later in a board meeting, or in a meeting of sectoral focus, and they ask you the same questions they asked 3 months ago. So I used to tell them, you know, this is the unfortunate bend of this continent of Africa. Even educated, highly educated individuals, including individuals who have gone to the best universities in the world. You know, if you take stock, you are still a university student. If you go to KU and call for the information about all the lecturers, where they went to school, you will find that some have gone to Harvard, others, East Anglia, Cambridge, York, Brisbane, all over the world. An array of individuals who should know how to address things professionally. But you find we're still doing the same things. Shortchanging students, for example, not giving them marks. Sometimes giving marks of Jane Karanja to Jane Timothy. And when you are asked, you say, after all, they're both Janes. So some of these things are the ones which make life of the youth insecure completely. You can't be peaceful if your marks has been taken. You know, your first class honors. Your first class honors is being taken by somebody and you're taking her pass or no, second. You understand? So I think it's important for us to continue engaging, and I'm happy that in this group we come in the vicinity of a person who is already practicing in the assembly. I hope that the culture of assembly members boxing one another and throwing chairs can also be mitigated, especially where
So thank you so much. And lastly, so that this one doesn't just become as a talk the way you said, for me I've noted a few things that as a way forward, immediate way forward, which we need to agree so that we can be able to roll and make something that will be different, not just a talk the way Prof said. So the first thing that after this what we want to do is to develop a multi-sectoral program approach toward implementation of this vision. So that, and this one we've agreed that it needs to start from the ground, where young people, as the lowest as the primary, need to begin and have that spirit of volunteering and promoting peace to secondary, to university, and other spheres, which at least we have, by the fact that we have Prof, he will be able to assist us really penetrating all those spheres of education. The second thing that we need to do after now developing that, we need to lobby for adoption from the highest level. For example, if it's the ministry, we need even the CS to really adopt this resolution and the multi-sector that we have approached, if it's the political party, if it's at the institutions of higher learning, so that it, first of all, it can be accepted from the highest level going down. So that's the second approach that maybe I feel we need to do. Then thirdly is now, we also need to map relevant actors who might not be here, but we feel will really assist in the implementation of this resolution. Because I feel, for example, maybe the religious actors, those are people that we cannot really forget. So those are some of the actors that we also need to map and include them in the discussion as we go. Then lastly, we also need now to lobby for more resources from the development partners, who I'm happy that some of them, other people have supported the discussion. Then from there, I'm 100% sure that other things will be able to unfold. I don't know if all of you agree with this as some of the way forward. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Maybe somebody can close with a word of prayer. And this one I'm told need to be from a different day.
Yes,
because men who are Muslim, women Christian.
What happens?
We can shift it to the other side. This is the side that
Yeah,
we
we nominate.
Unless
has been nominated.
Far be it for me to decline. I hope next time it will be a political one. Let us pray. We thank you, Father, for this time, for allowing us the opportunity to express ourselves on these important issues. We thank you for Prof and Prof for giving them the time, the energy, and the heart to work with young people and guide our thinking, to guide UCSPAK and the team that works at UCSPAK to do the good work that they are doing. We thank you for UCSPAK. We thank you for their leaders. We thank you for the Secretariat. And we pray that you may continue to give them the energy and the passion, the commitment and the resources they need to keep doing good for the youth of this country. And for all of us, Father, I pray that you continue to give us time and the energy to serve the National Youth Council, the political parties, the MCAs, that, Father, you may continue to guide our steps so that we may serve your people with diligence and accountability. As we go for lunch, Father, I pray that you may bless our food so that it will nourish our bodies. And when we disperse, Father, we pray for journey mercies. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Thank you so much. We need to have a group photo.